For those of you that don't know my story, I want to tell it to you a little bit. This might be um, therapeutic. I should maybe lay here on the couch like I joke in a lot of the episodes and say that either myself or our guest can do. I want to share with you who I am and give you a little insight on that. Because if you've been paying attention at all up to this point, then you and I must have something in common. Um, Not sure what that is, but I'll give you some details of my life, and maybe there's some crossover. MyCore is on a mission to be the world's most people-centric company. The purpose of this podcast is to get to the core of people. I'm your host, Nathan Bourne, and I invite you to join me as we deep dive into the personal and professional lives of our guests. We're going to learn who they are, why they exist, and what they do. We're going to hear their stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In other words, we're going to talk to some really cool people. Welcome to the MyCore podcast. Hey. I am excited to hang out with you today for conversation number 013. And you might say, Nathan, the camera looks a little bit close. Who is your guest? Who are you having a conversation with? Well, actually, I'm going to be having a convo with myself, talking to myself. I am pumped. We have had 13, or this is our 13th. We've had 12 episodes that have dropped. I've had 12 conversations where I've been able to get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you've listened to one of them or you've listened to all 12 of those, I thank you. Hopefully you've gained value. You've gained insights. You've had this sort of fly on the wall experience. I want you to even be like engaged, thinking like, man, it's like I'm right there on the couch. And I'll tell you, there's been some moments where like edge of your seat, right? Dun, dun, dun. Because I've been amazed at, even at this early stage of launching the MyCore podcast, the caliber of people that I've been able to converse with. I've laughed a lot, been crying even. And that's just like when we're live. That doesn't even include the conversations we'll have before or after or around the things that I learn about people that don't even make it into the episode. So I'm having an absolute blast. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It's stretching me. It's pushing me. There's moments where I think, what am I doing? I'm not a podcaster per se. I'm a founder and a CEO that has a podcast. So what I wanted to do, because we might not know each other at all, we might not know each other that well. And if you've been listening and you've been engaging with my content, with the MyCore content, I thank you. I thank you hugely. I don't take that lightly. I find it humbling. I think it's really cool. And what I want to do here periodically, and maybe it's every dozen episodes, maybe it's just every so often, I want to come in and have a conversation with you, have a conversation with myself, if you will, and just give you like the latest and greatest, the things that I'm learning, the things that I'm struggling through, the things that I'm pondering, maybe something that I've accomplished or at least felt like I have a handle on. Because, this thing called life is challenging. It's tumultuous at times. It's also beautiful, right? And wonderful. And the more I can share with you my journey, then I hope you'll share yours with me. And maybe it's in a formal capacity like this, where one day you and I do an episode together on the MyCore podcast, or if you have one, I'm a guest on yours. I'd love that. That's actually something I'm kind of ramping up. Realized, well, you know what? I can get out there and tell my story. I can tell the MyCore story. And without all the weight of production, lights, camera, action, we could probably do that more often. So I have my chief of staff and my COO, as well as the rest of the team, kind of on high alert, looking for podcasts and podcast hosts that align with my values with the values of my core, and that just would be a good vibe. So I'll put it out to you. If you listen to a podcast and you go, oh yeah, there's this guy or there's this gal that kind of reminds me of some of the conversations you have, Nathan, or some of the topics that you cover, uh, shoot us a message. I would love an introduction or even just to know it exists so that we can, get on their radar. That would be way cool. So yeah, for those of you that don't know my story, I want to tell it to you a little bit. This might be um, therapeutic. I should maybe lay here on the couch like I joke in a lot of the episodes and say that either myself or our guest can do. But um, I want to share with you who I am and give you a little insight on that. Because if you've been paying attention at all up to this point, then you and I must have something in common. Um, Not sure what that is, but I'll give you some details of my life, and maybe there's some crossover. If anything I share in this moment, it it is in common with you, or we do have it in common, shoot me a message. I'd love to get to know you. I'd love to hear your story, because we gotta stick together, right? Especially if you're out in the world making your way, doing something that maybe isn't the normal path or the predictable path, but that's difficult and challenging, like building a business and building a family and keeping yourself in good physical shape. I like to do hard things. I'm not super inspired by the easy path or the path of least resistance. I'm also not like a crazy person. I'm not one of these bullheaded hustle culture fellas. I'm much more like think or work smarter, not harder. But I do believe that you have to have a certain amount of grit, a certain amount of resilience. And if you weren't put in environments where that was built because you had no choice, well, then it's a good time to get into those environments. I've yet to do a cold plunge, not really about it. I mean, I'm the kind of guy that I want the shower to be nice and hot, get upset when my kids have used too much of the hot water because sometimes they're just playing in there. So not really an ice plunge guy, but I get the point that if you put your body in an environment, you submerge your body in a time and a space that's really, really hard and difficult. And I'm sure there's all these other reasons why people do it that I'm unaware of, but I think it is sort of a metaphor for the rest of life being a lot easier. It's what I call high altitude training, right? That if you can get up to levels where the oxygen is really low and you can operate and you can function, you can even perform at those levels. When you get to sea level where oxygen is a normal level, you feel like you're superhuman. You feel like you have the capacity to perform and outperform those around you. So for me, my life, my childhood was a bit of a high altitude training for entrepreneurship and mental toughness and grit and resilience. I'm the fourth of 9 children. That's pretty rare in this day and age as a millennial. And I grew up very poor, grew up without. Um, my parents got married at 18 and 19. Just the other day, my mother had her 62nd birthday. She is the mother of 9 children, 22 grandchildren. My youngest brother turned 22 in November. My oldest brother turned 43. So kind of rare in that regard, a big, poor family. But there's this other kind of detail to it that I've had to process and navigate. And of course, when I was like in it, I wasn't as aware of it until later in life, looking back and spending a lot of money on therapy. I have come to the realization that what really made it kind of unique or uniquely challenging for that matter was that my parents gave us this social capital. I'm like, what does that mean? Well, some of it was natural in the sense that we weren't worst looking people in the world. So we kind of had like a physical um, attractiveness to us, and that was accompanied by athletic ability. And super fun talking about this. I hate talking about it, but it's part of my story. It's part of who I am. And then they put us in these areas where there was affluence and it was normal and there were good schools and there was community and there were nice churches and people that had money and owned businesses. So I think typically when you hear about a poor family, you think of a trailer park or you think of an inner city, or ghetto or Project 8 housing. And I mean, we were like borderline a number of times, but we had to navigate what was like middle to upper middle class while being impoverished ourselves. In other words, we would go to the sporting event, we would perform, possibly, get the winning goal or win the winning match. We were top of the game. And then we didn't really have like a ride home from the tournament because my parents' one car, if they even had it, might have been broken down. Or we'd come home and the electricity had been turned off, or the power was like the oil that you would have to pay to have heat, if it was oil based, might have run out. And well, that's like $300 or $400 to fill it up and have the truck come out. So we would just kind of rough it and use blankets and sweatshirts, and take cold showers. So now, having 5 children of my own and living in yuppie North Florida, where life is good in the master planned amenity center, cookie cutter, Truman Show, Pleasantville uh, world that I'm in, it's like radical. Like I pinch myself thinking, is this really my life now, or this my children's lives? Even to the point where I pinch myself going, was it really that bad back then? I didn't make this up, right? This really happened. And I'll even have to like call my siblings and be like, yo, do you remember when we like lived on the porch in New Hampshire and like legit slept on the porch, like not a closed in porch, not a lanai, but like a porch. And we hung like sheets until it got so cold that then we lived in the basement, and then it got even colder and we lived in the living room because it was like a 2-bedroom modular home with like 7 children in it. It's like, yeah, dude, I remember that. Word. I was tricky, like trying to, you know, check myself to make sure I didn't make that up. So I could go on and on and on. There's story after story. And as I joked earlier, I've spent a pretty penny on therapy to process it. I've also buried a lot of it. But the point there is that we all have our unique stories. And I think it's important to access those stories, to go there, to hold that space, to open that drawer, to look at that shit, to deal with it, to feel it, and then to like source from it, to say, where can I find drive? Where can I find energy? Where can I find empathy, compassion? Where can I find like meaning and even identity? And then right about the time where it's starting to like shut you down, shut that drawer, right? Take a little trinket with you. Take the scissors that you hadn't seen in a while, or the key that you were looking for, right? We all have that drawer kind of in our house, that junk drawer. Well, I think we have a junk drawer in our life, and there's some things in it that if we can access, we can spend some time with, it could really serve us. What do you mean by that, Nathan? Well, if nothing else, it could make you a little more interesting. It could make you stand out a little bit more. But it's not really about being interesting. It's about being interested. How can you have an insight on a person's life because you can shoulder that pain with them? You can feel and have capacity for that challenge they're going through. So that might mean that your parents were divorced. I mean, that's about half of us, right? And maybe you haven't fully processed it. Maybe you chalked it up to, yeah, I had a lot of friends that were divorced, or my parents still got along okay. But what if there's like something in there that has defined who you are, for better or for worse? This could just be is. It just is who you are. And you're not entirely aware of it, and you're not leveraging it. You're not activating it, right? There might be a resilience emotionally that you don't even realize you have when you had to go visit your other parent across the country, or you had embarrassing moments, or just these life events that in the moment may seem insignificant, but they define who you are. And if you spend much time with me, you'll realize that I'm all about going backwards, not like digressively, and certainly not to live in the past, but to like pull back on the bow, so to speak. Use the strength of the things that have happened up until this point to propel you forward, to have a better trajectory. So a lot of times people ask me, like, Nathan, where do you find your drive? Where do you find your motivation or inspiration? And it's in exercises like this. It's in this process, making it make sense, right? And saying, okay, this couldn't have just happened for no damn reason, right? Like this had to have been for a reason. And as a Christian, as a believer, I don't live for myself. I have an order to the way that I think. And it's first my faith, first my relationship with the Creator, and then recognizing that I'm a unique creation, both as like the human species and like uniquely as Nathan Joseph Bourne. And I just am convinced that that's not unique to me, that I'm not the only one that gets to like activate that and possess that. So dig in a little deeper, and then a little bit deeper, and a little bit deeper. And when you land on something and you kind of check yourself and you go like, ooh, yeah, that's a little bit uncomfortable. See how you might be able to source from it and apply it to your present, to your current, to something that's holding you back, to something that has you stuck. And I bet you'll find, wait, there's fuel here. There's energy here. I could probably show up more confidently than I have been. I could probably show up more boldly than I have been. I could probably show up more patiently than I have been. I could probably show up with more forbearance, more delaying of gratification, because, man, back then that was way tougher than this. Man, that was more challenging than this. That was more heart wrenching and, detrimental emotionally than this. So a lot of times I don't think it's that people are weak. It's that people forget how strong they are. They forget how capable they are. So this is an exercise that I do pretty often when I'm coming up against a problem. And as an entrepreneur and a CEO and a leader and a father and a husband, I mean, I'm in the business of solving problems, right? I'm mainly in the muck and the mire. I get moments where it's cool and fun and maybe even sexy, but most of it's not sexy. Most of it's not fun. Most of it's not cool. But that's part of my identity. That's part of who I am, because I've been able to navigate challenging environments. I've also been able to thrive in challenging environments with really tough terrains. So my kind of encouragement to everyone, but particularly in this conversation with you and myself, is like, go there. And that might mean meditation. It might mean, therapy, talk therapy, some other forms of therapy. But what I've found, and I've said it in some of my content, I call it getting hung by the tongue. Put it out there in the world, right? Share it. Because if you share it enough, it gets part of your narrative. It gets hardwired into your story. What you might even say, like your brand. And then that will attract other people that share that quality with you. They'll go, man, you shared a thing that I don't normally hear in these environments that just like hit me. It was like you just gut punched me. And now I need to get a little more where that comes from. So if your goal is to attract people and to lead people and to be an influencer, I don't mean like a social media influencer. I mean like a influencer of people, a leader. Then you're going to have to be dynamic. You're going to have more to you than just capital or a good idea or, good connections. You're going to have qualities at the who level that separate you from most everyone else, if not just about everyone else. And don't let it get to your head. None of us are that special. But practice it. Practice it. And you don't need a platform with a big megaphone or a huge audience or, some like major reach. You don't need to be interviewed on Oprah or a major podcast. You can just start sharing it in your conversations, in your coffee with friends. I bet you that if you were to push yourself to do this, there are people around you, some of the closest people to you, that don't even fully know who you are. And I'm not saying that you're being fake or, you're not being vulnerable, but I think we all create these identities, and we do it from our nature, we do it from our nurture. We also project who we want to be, who we hope to be. And then we wonder why we're exhausted, why we're full of anxiety, why we, aren't connecting with the people around us like we thought we would. And I just think it's because we're not keeping it real. I just think it's because we're putting this sort of facade out. At the same time, as you share and you're vulnerable and you give insight, don't sit in it, don't dwell in it, and don't let it fully define you. So if it's something that happened to you, or it's a mistake that you made, or a choice that you made, or a lifestyle that you had, or a season of your life, own that shit, own it, but don't sit in it. I heard it this way, that God doesn't just let you sit there, right? He loves you too much to leave you where he found you. So I know as a Christian that it's not just enough to believe or to have like a box checked, but I've got to improve my life. I've got to improve my story, and I've got to improve the people's lives around me, right? When I walk into a room, I'm either dimming that room, I'm darkening that room, or I'm brightening that room. I'm lighting that room up. And it's not just like whether you come in and clap your hands or wave your arms. It's what's happening on the inside. It's the work that you've done up to that point. It's the soul searching and the personal development and the personal growth and kind of like that preparation. It's that classic luck is when opportunity or preparation meets opportunity. Right? So whatever season you're in right now, whatever you're doing right now when you're listening to this in this moment, I would encourage you to believe, like genuinely believe that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, that it's meant to be, that the moment that you're having was fashioned for you, and that you're on your way. Things are about to get gooder and gooder and gooder, right? They're about to get better and better and better, but not just because you hoped, but that you prepared, that you really did the work, right? You put the forethought in, you prepared, you planned, you strategized, you built the relationships, you built the mindset, you built the skill set, you built the tool set. So that's kind of just how I roll. And then I would just encourage you, like, maybe assess yourself about 50-50 and say, okay, I'm going to give myself permission to be about 50% of what I naturally am. This is the classic I am what I am, right? Like, this is me. This is us. But the other 50%, the other half, you should be building it, creating it, forging it, willing it into existence. I love that word forge because it's kind of has a double meaning, right? I'm saying it like the way you would forge a path or forge something into steel. If you think of it like forgery, like signing somebody else's name, it has like a bad connotation, right? It's like, oh, that's not good. It sounds illegal. But let's just play with that for a moment. This is sort of the act as if part of the process. Not the same as fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it is just that. You're being fake. You're not really doing the work. You're pretending. You're using these surface level kind of optics, filters to create a perception that you're a thing. That will always be found out. Time promotes or exposes. But acting as if, or what I heard recently, faith it till you make it. I thought that was a good little play on words, right? That you have to believe it until you make it. You have to have the faith that you're on your way and that you're transforming and that you're sort of in this metamorphosis. You're like a worm or a caterpillar, rather, becoming a butterfly. But the part that's really important about that process, about that metamorphosis, is that when the caterpillar is in the cocoon, it struggles to break through the cocoon. In fact, if you were to find a cocoon and you could kind of see that, oh, wait, this is almost finished, this is almost ready to fly. If you were to take like a razor blade or a sharp knife and cut it open and think, oh, I'm going to help this caterpillar, now butterfly, soon to be flying free, out, you'd actually kill it. It would fall to the ground because what happens in that process, in that struggle, this is really interesting. It strengthens its muscles by the wings and the shoulders and sort of the muscles and ligaments trying to break through and break free. And this is like nature. So think about that in your and my life. There's some type of a cocoon that we're in right now, some type of an environment, some type of a role, some type of a status, right? It might be our title, it might be our income, it might be our zip code, it might be just like the level that we're at in our lives and our businesses. And we're trying to soar, right? We're trying to break free and climb the mountain and reach the next level. But we're struggling. We're going through this like really tough time. If you try to skip that part, either because you stop fighting or you find a shortcut or somebody else comes along and just hands it to you, or even if God answered the prayer that you think you want right now, you wouldn't become the person. That other half that has to be built, that has to be forged, that you have to sign that name, even though you're not really that person yet, even though you're kind of forging the document, forging the signature, that process is really, really, really important. And that's how you become the real deal Holyfield. I'm just preaching here in my studio by my own damn self, but I'm talking to myself, right? Literally. But those are the types of thought patterns that I have that push me through the tough times. So, take inventory. Ask yourself, what was my childhood like? What was my family like? What environments have I been in? What environments have I flourished in? What environments have I struggled in? Get in touch with that stuff because we all have a unique story. We all have a unique background. And I bet you there's gems in there. And I bet you there's just like resources that you're not accessing because you're ignoring it or you just haven't thought much about it. But if you're listening to this, if you've been attracted at all to Nathan Bourne or the My Core podcast, then you're probably somebody that's in a growth journey. You're probably somebody that's in a growth process. So yeah, that's kind of my main message for today. Is I just wanted to check in and have an opportunity, sort of unfiltered stream of consciousness, to share some of the things that I'm battling through, because every level has its devil, right? And launching this podcast was really uncomfortable. And I can remember even just a few months ago, sharing it with a few people and being like, what? Now, what are you going to do? Like, how does that pertain? That sounds weird. What are you going to try to be a podcaster? And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not really going to even listen to that. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do the thing and have the power. And now, right here, episode/convo number 13 with 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 already on the books with some awesome people. Wait till you hear who I'm talking with next. I mean, I've got quite a lineup, and like followers and what people have accomplished. It's not like the end all be all, but we're really like leveling up the caliber of people that we even allow on the podcast. Not because I'm greater than thou or we're greater than thou, but because we want to bring value to these conversations to people that maybe are a chapter ahead, that have had to learn from mistakes that you can learn from, that I can learn from. I've heard it this way, that we should learn from mistakes, preferably other people's, right? So I want to just take a couple more minutes as I kind of land the plane on this, and give you what I believe is the purpose of this podcast, what I'm feeling like is the future for the My Core podcast, and really kind of My Core as a whole. And that should just give you a little bit of insight into our vision and our roadmap and where we're going, because I just want you to keep coming along for the journey. If that's in a formal capacity because you're working with us, awesome. Keep on keeping on. If it's just because you're like, hey, I'm here for it, and it inspires me to see the My Core brand and the My Core story grow, then awesome. I thank you. So yeah, a couple thoughts on that, and we'll close out. So I have always sort of felt this call to be in this capacity, to storytell, to capture other people's stories and journeys, and see how we can use that to inspire great ideas and inspire innovation and inspire people in all these different areas of life, not just business. And you may or may not know this about me, but I started a company, my first company, in 2006 at the age of 18, going into my freshman year of college, with my BFF, my best friend, still a great friend to this day, Ryan Shank. He and I started a company called Coloco. And the word Coloco means local. I'm not going to go into that right now, but it was a really cool concept where we were building not just clothing, not just fashion, but we were creating sports teams, not like rec sports, but like skate and surf and snowboarders. And we had musicians, and we had seamstresses, and we had artists. And it was really kind of like all the aspects of art and fashion, but we were doing it on a local level, this kind of inside out operation. So instead of trying to impose our styles or our design or our art on other people, we had the people from that area designing all of it. And it went really, really well, especially for a bunch of kids that had no idea what they were doing. So that's always been kind of like core to my thesis and to my thinking and to the way that I operate businesses. I'm much more boots on the ground, micro. How do we build this through relationships? How do we connect people? How do we tell stories? And how do we like bring it back to Main Street, bring it back to the local community? So that's been a common thread through everything I've built and everything I've done since then and up to this point now. 19 years later. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, next year will be our 20-year high school reunion. Oh, it's depressing. Anyway, so I have been iterating towards kind of like just walking towards being active on media, all things media. social media. I'm in the process right now of writing the book, Lead with Who. I've done a lot of speaking and training and feel relatively comfortable with a microphone and now a camera. I've always been like in that space. I did theater through high school and before high school, and then a little bit in college. Um, so something happened that I think was gearing up over a period of time in our world, but particularly in my thinking, when the election in November concluded. Regardless of where you stand on the political scale and spectrum and which side you are, that's not this conversation, but I think we'd all agree that old media, legacy media, mainstream media is dead, dying/dead, right? Ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody trusts it. Nobody wants anything to do with it. And considering it's all driven by ad spend and a great deal of lobbyists, I think it's probably just going to be obsolete entirely in the next few years. So we're seeing this decentralization of free speech, of media, of news, of like current events. And it's no wonder we all have the ability through our smartphone to catch it live, catch it real time. We can blog about it, we can post about it. And life's sort of this big editorial now, right? I mean, it's disturbing the amount of misinformation and lack of fact checking, and the fact that you can kind of just make things up, and then you add in AI and it's like, whoa, this is a whole nother, intricacy. Not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but I want to tell you the aha that we had right about the end of the year and where we're gearing up to, and just invite you in to that journey. So historically, MyCore has been in the business to business space, and that was all branded under the MyCore like shield and the MyCore brand and the MyCore nomenclature. What we did is we repackaged those services, we repackaged those solutions in two brands: Profit Share and Market Share. Profit Share, which sounds like profit share, and Market Share, which sounds like market share, are the two biggies, the two kind of sides of our house, the two brands in our solutions. One being your all in one people ops solution. So that's everything from payroll, benefits, HR, employee engagement, incentive, and profit sharing. It really kind of comprises and makes up the employee experience. And then we have solutions for bookkeeping and accounting and these relationships and kind of ecosystem that we keep. Think of it like the internal kind of guts of a business. And then we have market share, which is the external sort of outward parts of a business. That's its marketing, or specifically its digital marketing. We call that your all-in-one digital marketing solution. So that's website builds and managing your reviews and your online reputation and your search engine optimization and like CRM and just all the things. Okay. So it's really this like end-to-end, bumper to bumper solution for local businesses, Main Street businesses. We can do larger companies, but we focus on under 100 employees, and like 25 to 50 is like our sweet spot, because not only is it best in class technology, but each of our clients are assigned a single point of contact, your people advisor on the profit share people ops side, and your marketing advisor on the digital marketing market share side. Okay, got that out. Hate talking about that kind of stuff, but it has made up what we actually do around here, right? And how we've been profitable and how we keep the lights on, and what are our profit centers, if you will. So the big play in that was to actually free up the MyCore brand, this shield, that shield, to go into media. You might be like, man, Nathan, that's a little bit crazy. Well, here's what I want you to think about. There's a really cool image for it. Maybe Kenya, when she's editing this, can slide it in or something, right? Do her magic. But I asked her to make this image where it shows MyCore Media has our mission to be the world's most people-centric company, has our core values: walk by faith, lead with who, measure what matters. And then has this really cool image where it says mainstream media, and it crosses out stream and has the word street. So my core media is Main Street media. This means that we're hitting the streets, right? We're going into the centers of these communities, what typically is Main Street, the Main Street restaurants, the Main Street community, the Main Street businesses. And we're telling the story from the inside out, right? We're getting the people from that town, that area, that city to share their culture, to share their way of life. And that's our big vision for my core, and specifically my core media, and even more specifically, Main Street media. So we've got some really cool ideas. I'm looking at a schoolie right now, like a school bus that is gutted, and it's kind of looks like my studio here, where I would imagine us going into these towns all across the country and eventually the world and doing pop-ups where we have a local coffee shop with a local band playing and maybe a local brewery. And then we have people coming onto the bus and pitching their business ideas, sharing their business. And we're capturing that story, and we're featuring and highlighting and spotlighting that story. And that media is getting put across all of our social media and put out on mycore.media. And people can subscribe to that exclusive content. And then I don't plan to be the only podcast host. I'm not even that good at it, frankly, right? I imagine us having a fleet, an army of creators, a group of people that maybe even have their own brand, but are looking to hitch their wagon to the support and to the leadership and to the reach that we have. So just really exciting things happening right now, and it is inspiring. And then what happens is people go down the rabbit hole and they learn about what we do, and they learn about the solutions, and they ask about profit share, and they ask about market share, and they say, hey, I want to learn about your partner program, or hey, I like totally get this. I want to be a business advisor, and I want to take this to market like now, not some future state. So I'm just kind of sharing all this and rattling it off to you, because just in case you thought MyCore was only a podcast, I would just invite you to come down the rabbit hole, take the red pill. In fact, I want to finish on this. The first week of April, Monday, March 31st, we will be arriving in Columbia, South Carolina. Okay, you don't need a passport, just Columbia, South Carolina. We are doing our big event for this half of the year in Columbia, South Carolina. You can go to our website, mycore.ai. You'll see a tab right across the header that says Columbia. You could also just go directly to mycore.ai/Columbia, but you can get tickets to that event right now. And what's cool is it's all on the same venue. So we sleep and we eat and we have our sessions, and we'll be there for 3 days, from Monday night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday night. And then most people will ship out on Thursday. And for only $397, you can attend the event. Also have 3 nights covered in the hotel. It's with a roommate. So if you say, like, I can't sleep with another person, like I snore too much or they might snore too much, then just buy 2 tickets, buy out your roommate. But if you're saying, hey, I like to keep it scrappy, plus it's a cool way to network and it doesn't sound like we're going to be in the room a lot, or if you're thinking me and my spouse are going to come, or me and my business partner, or me and my person who I know would dig what's going on with MyCore and want to network and meet other professionals, want to come, then both of you grab a ticket and we'll see you there. Catch us in Columbia is the little tagline. So yeah, those are just like kind of state of the union, all the things that are going on, a little bit about my personal story and all of that. And I'll just kind of end with this to bring it full circle. I am 36 years old today. I founded this company, MyCore Incorporated, officially October 2nd of 2018. And I'm at this place in my life where I'm kind of both creatures. I come from a tough, challenging, humbling upbringing, big, poor family, as I mentioned. I also went to an Ivy League school, was a Division I wrestler, and have been in business for years. So that's put me in country clubs and sponsoring golf tournaments and being around kind of like, movers and shakers and whatever, yuppies or whatever you want to call it. And what I've also found this through therapy, is that I don't really fit in either of these worlds. It's tough because sometimes I can feel like I'm hiding in plain sight, like anywhere I go, I don't really belong. Because if I'm around the people that are struggling, although I have a great deal of empathy and I know the world that they live in and the world they have to navigate, full disclosure, I struggle having patience. And I am like, get your shit together. On the flip side, when I'm around people that do have it together and are looking to expand and grow and conglomerate and, check their stocks and build alliances, I think to myself, do you have any idea how people really live at the lower levels of socioeconomics? And that can create a little bit of an edge where I'm like, screw this person, right? Or screw these people. And I don't like these things. This is just me sharing from my heart. So what I've done is I've created a community within my core that people from all different walks of life come in, not because of their upbringing or because of where they are in life for status, but because of their core values. And that's created a home for me. And I just want to keep inviting people into that. One of the ways that we invite people is through our academy, our growth community. And if you're somebody that says, Nathan, I didn't even plan on listening to this long, but I want to learn about the academy because I want to be around people that are continuing to grow their mindset and sharpen their skill set and assess and enhance their tool set because they believe they should be assets in life, then check out our academy. It's a really cool way that on a 24/7, 365 basis with both live events, virtually live and in real life, and in like a self-paced way through the classroom and the courses, you can get around this stuff. So as always, I'm just got a big sign. I mean, I'm not really the founder and CEO of MyCore. I'm like the sign twirling guy that you see on the corner saying like, come look at the open house or get your taxes filed at HR Block or whatever. That's kind of my jam. Is I just love inviting people in to our world and hoping that they stay and that they plant their flag and that they find a way to either exist fully or coexist or be a diplomat and kind of come in with their passport and go to their normal world. So more on my story as I do these little convos with Nathan and stream of consciousness. But just in case you thought I had it all figured out or I came from some form of privilege, don't be fooled by my super great hair. I am white trash and I have just worked harder on myself than I do on my business. And I'm continuing to be a work in progress. So I appreciate you spending this time with me. I hope you have a fantastic day and just find a way to get involved with MyCore. And I thank you so much. I'm humbled that you even listen and plug into our content and consume our podcast. Much love. God bless. Bye-bye.